This is a recording for the three thirds. We're picking back up and we're going to jump into the first third of the three thirds, which we call looking back. And so, what I'm going to do, this is how we lay out the three thirds. But for the sake of training, I'm just going to get another sheet of paper so I can kind of elaborate a little bit more on each of the pieces looking back. So, if this helps you, just going to put looking back. This is the first third right here. All right. And so the first thing we do when we meet in a group or in person, and this is going to be incredibly intuitive. I don't even know if I have to train this. The first thing we do is we go around and care for each other, and we put an arrow up and an arrow down, representing how was your week? Give us the high and low from your week. What was good? What was bad? What are you thankful for? What are you down? It's just a simple question. We're just checking in on people. And so if we're one-on-one, we ask the question. If we're in a large group of 20 or 30 people, we break the group up into groups of four, five max, six max, because this can take a really long time, depending on the group. We try to keep it tighter, 10 to 15 minutes, right? Sometimes to do that. And if in the middle of that care time, something comes up that's really pressing, we encourage that group to stop at that moment and pray. So don't really need to train that, but that's the first thing we do is we care because all discipleship, healthy discipleship, is ultimately based on a relationship with that person. The second thing we do, this is where we begin to go against the grain of groups right here, is we have what we call loving accountability. I'm going to spell that out there. The key word there is loving accountability. And I would suggest to you that this is probably one of the most missed aspects of group life is how do you do that in an open group where people are coming and going. And so what we've done is we've attempted to do this in a healthy but consistent way. And we break loving accountability into three areas. The first is in the area of go, and the second area is in the area of grow, and the third area is in the area of gather. Okay. And we ask a question related to each of these three areas. Um, uh, Sometime, hopefully, we get to all three questions during accountability. The first question we ask in accountability: did you engage somebody this week in a spiritual conversation? And that would entail: did you pray for them, or did you share the gospel? It's amazing when you ask that question, spiritual conversation, it runs the gamut. But did you even attempts? Did anyone engage people in prayer or the gospel this week, and how did it go? The second question we ask is, did God move in your life this week? Um, did God move anywhere in your life? Or anything like that? The other thing we ask is, did you learn anything from Scripture this week about God? Learn anything about God in Scripture? And then the other area is potentially if you're meeting one-on-one or one-on-three, that you're setting specific goals in the area of obedience. But in a general group, we just ask, hey, did God move anywhere in your life this past week? And did you learn anything from Scripture about God? Very simple. And then the gather piece is there anybody you can invite to this group? Uh, or is there a place where you can start a group like this, or people you can invite to a group like this? I hope this makes sense to you because these are three key areas of accountability that are rarely ever mentioned. So at this point, we stop and we go, all right, with your group, did anyone share the gospel this week or engage people in prayer? And then you have that, and then you move on to this next question. Did God move in your life anywhere this week? Did you learn anything from God about God this week from Scripture? And lastly, can we invite anybody to this group, or is there a place where we can start a group and do the exact same thing with people here? The third thing we do in accountability is what we call vision. And so there's two things that we can do with vision. The first thing, the most sustainable piece, is we can pray for people far from God by name. That is the most sustainable thing you can do in vision. The reason we call this vision, by the way, is sorry, I think you spelled that right, is vision leaks. That's why we have a sermon every week. That's why we read our Bible. It's kind of like a gas tank in our car. It constantly has to be filled with what is God's vision for our life where we live. And we do that one of two ways. We're constantly reminded by praying for people who are far from God, or we have someone give a testimonial or a story of where they have had a spiritual conversation that week, or where they have started a group doing the same thing. And so that's sometimes we have, man, there's a great story I hear. Hey, let's tell this to the whole group. That is really a great example of going and gathering this week. And so, so you might say a testimonial of go or gather from the team or from the group. Now, there is a fourth thing we do with looking back. I'm going to put a star here, and it's the word vision. And the reason I put a star there is it's key if you're meeting in a home or if you're doing house church or one-on-one. And this is where we sing a song or we read a passage that lifts up the character or the attributes of God. Now, this is key because when we get to the looking up, which is where we're reading scripture, what we find in scripture when we focus on the character and attributes of God, it tenderizes our heart. It prepares our heart to hear and obey God. So this is a really a key aspect. But generally in groups at a church, you're coming into worship or out of worship. And so this is if you have time to do this, we highly encourage that. However, this is a lot to do in looking back. And so, looking back, care, loving accountability. Again, we try to take 10 to 15 minutes with this, depending on the groups. And also, this can take, we usually take 5 to 10 minutes with this. And then the same thing down here. This can take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes with that. So that is looking back. I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, feel free to email me.